A new poll is out for the British Columbia provincial election, and it is excellent news for John Rustad and the BC Conservative Party. Despite the fact that we are still 5 months out before the next provincial election, and a lot of voters don't really start paying attention until a month or two beforehand, the BC Conservatives decisively have the momentum. David Eby and his failing NDP are not just sort of floundering in the polls, they're dropping like a stone. They used to be at 45% not that long ago. Now they're only at 37%, according to this Polera poll. Polera has the BC Conservatives at 38. As I said before, the NDP's at 37. The BC United are at 13, and the BC Greens are at 9%. The BC Conservatives have the momentum, and it's because the main issue of this election is David Eby himself. This election has become a referendum on David Eby and whether or not you want all of his policies reversed or not. This wasn't in the Polera poll, but in past polls, when you actually look at what different British Columbians think on the issues, they think that David Eby is doing a terrible job on all of the election defining issues. And that's why it's a referendum on him. Because on drugs, crime, taxes, especially the carbon tax, and SOGI 123, British Columbians don't like what David Eby is doing. And so the entire election is get David Eby out of office or not. And the BC Conservative Party is the only party that can do that and make it worthwhile. Yes, Kevin Falcon and the BC United still technically exist. But even if British Columbians bent over backwards to donate even more money to the BC United, campaigned for them, and got them into office, what would happen? Nothing. They would moderately reform some of the things that David Eby have been doing, but their behavior in the legislature has proven that they have more in common with the NDP than they do with the BC Conservative Party. And I want to get to talking about the merger talks that had happened with Kevin Falcon, John Rustad, and Port Coquitlam Mayor Brad West, because I am very happy to see John Rustad just outright denied the ability to merge with the BC United. You do not staple yourself to a burning log like the BC United. People don't trust them, so don't water down your own party and join with them and let all of the corrupt consultants into your party. They're on the right track. Stay the course and you will win. This poll demonstrates that they're on the right course because the BC Conservatives, all they have to do to win this election is point at David Eby, say, get rid of that radical hippie out of office, and we will get rid of all of his radical policies. We'll recriminalize drugs, we will lower taxes, we'll crack down on crime, and we'll get rid of the carbon tax. That's what BC residents want. BC voters, contrary to popular opinion outside of British Columbia, like I'm in Alberta and everyone thinks that BC voters must like what David Eby is doing. They haven't liked anything that the BC NDP have been doing. The polling shows it. They didn't like the BC Liberals before, and it's why the reason why these people kept getting into office is there wasn't the conservative alternative. And so BC voters were subjected to keep getting hoodwinked by either the NDP or the Liberals saying, hey, we're going to improve things on drug addiction. We're going to improve crime. We're going to get control of taxes. And when they said that, they really just meant that they were just going to continue with whatever plan that wasn't working before, but they're going to double the funding or put an even more radical spin on what we're currently doing. And somehow, eventually, all these horrors will crack through towards utopia and everything will be fantastic. BC residents have gotten sick of being offered utopia and just falling further into the pit. What they want is a government that doesn't promise the moon, that just promises to get out of your way, to get control of crime and drugs and stop with the radical policies. But now I just quickly want to jump over and talk about the discourse that was going on over the last few days over potential mergers between the BC Conservatives and BC United and Brad West's offer that he could helm the new party. He could helm the new merger party between the Conservatives and United. It's a terrible idea. John Rustad identified it. He even called them out saying, back when the BC Conservatives and United were tied, we had offered a merger deal that would have had some power sharing between myself and Kevin Falcon. And we even brought Brad West into the conversation, and they weren't interested at all. I know that John Rustad used some more colorful language describing the BC United's response. And I think if they want to merge now that they are way down in the polls, they can go pack sand. If they couldn't identify that the BC Conservatives were the vehicle of the future back then, they've just proven that they have no leadership qualities and they don't know what British Columbians want. Why would you want those people potentially coming to your policy conventions in the future and watering down everything that you're doing? The federal Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre have more than 50% of the federal vote in British Columbia. The BC Conservatives have more than enough people to work with to win, and it's not that they need the United to come into the party or they're going to somehow split the vote and the NDP are going to come up the middle. No, in fact, the BC United staying outside of the Conservatives helps the Conservatives more than it actually hurts them. It's actually hurting the BC NDP right now because the Conservatives have almost fully divested the United Party of all the federal Conservatives who would ever dream of voting for the BC Conservatives. Now, the BC United are mostly just left with federal Liberal Party supporters and some federal NDP supporters. So the BC United are just going to become the vote funnel. If you think David Eby's too radical, but you're not willing to vote Conservative, you might go and vote for the United. But if United didn't exist, you might stick with the NDP because you have this media-trained hatred for all Conservatives and you're unwilling to vote for John Rustad's party. So I hope the BC United stay out there whining at the Conservatives to come in. Don't merge with them. They have proven themselves to be losers, and don't let those losing people onto your team. I also want First to Know and the Greens to stick around. They are also just funneling votes out of the NDP because, like I said at the start of this video, or maybe it was in a different take, I've restarted this video so many times, guys. Please sympathize with me. This is like my 40th time because so many people have tongue twister names, at least in my opinion. But right now, the BC NDP are relying on about a third of soft support still. A third of the BC NDP's voters are not even sure if they're even going to vote for them. That's a dangerous position to be in because almost 100% of BC Conservative voters are sure that they want John Rustad to be the next premier. When you're behind in the polls as David Eby, and even a third of your voters are still thinking about voting Conservative, United, or just staying home, man, you're not going to be able to make a comeback. And Eby pretending, oh, I'm willing to listen, I'm willing to reform the NDP's approach to drugs. No, he's not. He is a radical hippie who all he said in his walking back of decriminalization was, please, guys, stop using crack and meth in public parks. Do it on the sidewalk where the police aren't going to arrest you. And guys, the BC police under Rustad's radical government are not going to start enforcing these no smoking meth in public areas like policies because in the past he's let people encamp in public parks, which is still illegal, and he stops the police from actually cleaning up the encampments. This guy is a radical. He has an anti-Semitic base who literally kicked out one of their own ministers from her job for being Jewish, basically. This is a party ruled by activists, and it doesn't matter how much they promise to moderate, the party is run by the people who hate the moderates. They want the policies that David Eby has been implementing over the last 4 years even harder. They want the policies to get even more intense because they are true believers who think that the policy just needs to be implemented hard enough and eventually we will crack through to the utopian dream that we keep painting. It's not happening. If you want normal, it's not happening with the NDP. It's only happening with the BC Conservatives. And that's why I urge you, if you live in British Columbia, don't just vote for the BC Conservatives. You have to volunteer and donate. If you want the change made, you can't assume someone else is going to donate and volunteer. You have to do it or nobody else is going to do it. That's the mentality everyone has to have when it comes to politics these days. So I have the BC Conservative donation link in the description of this video below. They are not paying me to promote them. I want to do it to make sure that BC goes back to a better, new, normal status quo and that we defend it. Make sure that BC stops being the repository of all the most radical policies that get imported into the rest of the province. I know none of you in British Columbia were cool with this, so let's make sure that it stops now. And then also, if you don't live in British Columbia, you can donate to my legal fund. Don't have to. I know I mention it a lot. It's not because I'm like insolvent or something, but it does help us pay for all of the massive amount of legal costs we've incurred from this Chinese billionaire suing us, a billionaire developer suing us for defamation. Defamation he cannot prove, and in over 2 years, of this case ongoing, it's been actually like 2.5 years, he still hasn't presented any evidence to prove that we have defamed him, and we have presented a lot of evidence to prove that he knows he wasn't defamed by us. Anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. Thank you for watching. Like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and then I also have the TNT Telegram channel link in the description. You can click on that, and we upload every single video we post in order there, so you don't have to rely on YouTube recommending our latest videos up in the sidebar. And that reminds me, turn on your notification bell so you also are notified on YouTube whenever we come up with a video. You want as many points of notification as possible to make sure you don't miss anything. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.